Morning. Thank you for joining me for another 5 good minutes with the Word. I'm Barry Bryson, and we're continuing our study of the Gospel of Mark. Today we're in chapter 13, and we'll be talking for the next few days about the Discourse on the Mount of Olives. Jesus is in his final week of life before his crucifixion event. He's at the Passover. He's moving freely throughout the temple compound, teaching, preaching, healing, the things that he does. He has cleansed the temple compound, and he is unrestricted. And of course, that means the people who are the powers that be, even though they agree about very few things, have agreed that Jesus has got to go. And in chapter 13, it just tells us what happens. We've already established that they're going back and forth across the Mount of Olives into Jerusalem, that they're not spending the night in the city. And the city would have been so crowded. A city of maybe 100,000 people or less would double, triple in size around the time of the Passover. And of course, the political climate was so poised on a knife's edge. It was just ready to blow up, and it would blow up in about 30 years. So everybody's worried. Everybody is on edge at this time. And Jesus is spending his nights in Bethany on the other side of the Mount of Olives, about 2 miles from the city of Jerusalem. And as they cross over, of course, they can go through the Garden of Gethsemane. Before we get to this section, we need to just talk about some geography and some architecture. The temple compound is the compound of buildings and colonnaded porches and piazzas that surround the second temple. This is the temple that was rebuilt from the returnees from Babylonian captivity. Remember when we were talking about the Minor Prophets just a few months ago, we recall that time when they laid the foundation for the new temple, and everybody was weeping, and some were tears of joy, but some of the old people who could remember Solomon's temple were weeping because they knew they would never see the temple be so glorious again. Well, they didn't in their lifetime, but beginning, in about 40 BC or so, Herod the Great had begun an enormous building program around the temple, and it was one of the show places on earth. He had doubled the original footprint. He had walled it in. He had made it as beautiful as he could possibly make it, and it was quite a stunning thing to behold, and he did it in just a few decades. In fact, it wasn't technically complete at the time Jesus is crucified. The work on it has not. Of course, it's all gone now, except for a section of the outer retaining wall, which is the Wailing Wall. But anyway, they're leaving, and most of these guys are from Galilee. They've made trips, but I myself, being a kid from West Virginia, from the Ohio Valley, never drive into D.C. and it gets old. Seeing those structures that are really not that old, but they're meaningful politically, culturally, historically to me as an American citizen, and you never lose that sense of wonder. And I think we know exactly how these guys were feeling. And as they're going out across the Mount of Olives, they cross the Kidron Valley, they go up the Mount of Olives, they stop in the Garden of Gethsemane, which is his haunt. He loves this place. This is where he's going to pray to God in just a few days. It is a public park filled with fragrant trees and flowers, particularly olive trees. Gethsemane means the olive press. There was an ancient olive press there, and Herod built that too. And so they're looking from one hill across to the other hill. If you get pictures of Temple Mount and the Dome of the Rock, like touristy pictures, it's taken from the top of the Mount of Olives across to the old city of Jerusalem. You can get a little bit of a flavor of this moment, and they're just really impressed with the structures, and they talk to Jesus about them. And so then they ask him, Jesus says they're going to be destroyed. Not one stone will be left on another. And that really is upsetting to them to think about. And so they ask him these questions. And we want to just read that and just talk about the questions themselves. And then we'll get into Jesus' prophecies and his conversation next time. Chapter 13. As he was going out of the temple, one of his disciples said to him, "Teacher, behold, what wonderful stones, what wonderful buildings." And Jesus said to him, "Do you see these great buildings? Not one stone shall be left upon another which will not be torn down." And as he was sitting on the Mount of Olives, opposite the temple, Peter, James, John, and Andrew were questioning him privately. "Tell us, when will these things be? And what will be the sign when these things are going to be fulfilled?" These are the questions that they ask. Now, this event is recorded in all three synoptic gospels, Matthew, Mark, and Luke. Matthew includes more questions that the other apostles have at this moment. But if Peter is the primary source of this, we get, what he knows firsthand as the four brothers. The two sets of brothers come to Jesus and say, "What are you talking about?" And he starts to tell them what he's talking about. What he's talking about is the destruction of Jerusalem that will take place when the Jews rebel in the 60s. It will take place over the course of several years. The Romans will have to come. Titus and Vespasian. Titus will be called away to become emperor. Vespasian will be the one to finally breach the walls and destroy the city. But the Romans will do just that. They will destroy the old city of Jerusalem. And the buildings are utterly destroyed, exactly as Jesus described. But something more important happened, which is going to be borne out in the things Jesus is going to be saying. In this moment, AD 66 to 70, in this moment when the Romans destroyed the city of Jerusalem, they not only destroyed the city, they destroyed Judaism itself. Mosaic Judaism ceased to exist. It does not exist anymore. You cannot be an Old Testament Jew the way you and I can be New Testament Christians. There's no priesthood. There are no sacrifices. There's Passover is not being observed in Jerusalem at the temple. There is no holy place or holiest place. The ark is not there. It's gone. It's gone. All of it is gone. It has been destroyed, henceforth and forevermore destroyed by the action of God through the iron fist of the Roman army. And that is what he's about to tell them about in the coming verses. And we'll follow up next time. Thank you for joining me for another 5 good minutes.